What's up, lovers of whiskey and watchers of YouTube? I'm the Malt Activist, and today we are going to review the winner of the online Scotch Whisky Awards Best Scotch Single Malt Whisky of the year 20,000. Is it 20,000? 2022. I'm of course talking about this Glen, Scotia VICTORIANA. Are you ready? You better be ready. Before we begin, welcome to our first time viewers. Thank you for tuning in and watching this video. It's highly appreciated. By the way, if you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon, or even better, join the YouTube membership community and support this channel either here or on Patreon. That being said, welcome to our returning and longtime viewers. You're the reason we keep going the way we are. And finally, a big thank you to all the YouTube members and my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. It's because of you this channel is up and running. So thank you to everybody, and now let's get on with the whiskey. So a few months ago, I got an email from Roy of Aquavit, and who said, hey man, would you be interested in being a part of this year's online Scotch Whisky Awards as a contributor, right? As, I think judge is the wrong word, but as someone who sort of, helped narrow down the nominations. And I believe there were 56 of us that the channel reached out to, which also includes the great Ralphie, by the way. So they reached out to us and said, hey man, would you like to be a part of the judging panel that brings down the nominations to a manageable number? And I said, of course, 100%, that would be an absolute honor. And so I would just like to say, before anything else, that being a part of the OSWAs on the judging side was just truly amazing, and what an absolute feat that these guys have accomplished with these awards. So purely 100% independent, I think completely non-profit, and this is all your voices, right? This is people's voices who are nominating and assigning winners. So thank you to everybody involved who was part of this. Big up to you guys, and thank you for the community for voting so diligently. I believe we had thousands and thousands of entries, so well done to everybody. I think this was a great success. So now, obviously, like everybody, we tuned into the live stream of the winners of the OSWAs, and when it came down to what is arguably the largest category in the competition, which is Best Single Malt Scotch Whisky of the Year, everybody sort of tuned in and they're like, ooh, this one's going to be interesting. And amongst, a stalwart of nominations, some very excellent whiskeys in those, the one that came out on top was this VICTORIANA from Glen, Scotia Distillery in Campbeltown. And when I saw that, I went, what? Wow, I was not expecting that. And I thought to myself, whoa, I've drunk this whiskey before, and I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I wasn't, too thrilled, but apparently the people have voted this to be the best single malt Scotch whiskey of 2022. And I thought to myself, am I an idiot? Don't answer that, obviously. But look, I understand, different reviewers having different tastes, but when such a large group of whiskey consumers come together and they vote for a whiskey, and you don't have real fond memories of it, you begin to question yourself and you think, did I make the right choice? Was I in a hurry? Did I have it in different circumstances? So what I'd like to do today is basically just sort of re-review this and just kind of make sure that I got it right the first time, or I'm very happy to change my mind. I'm not ashamed about that. Also, in my defense, I tasted 3 other Glen Scotias that day. I think we had the double cask and the 18-year-old and the 15-year-old and this VICTORIANA. So, I don't know, maybe my taste buds are contaminated. I don't know. I have no idea. So, what do we know about Glen, Scotia? Well, it's a Campbeltown distillery. It opened up in 1832, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 100 years later, closed down thanks to the Great Depression. On and off again for another 80 years, until in 2014 bought over by Loch Lomond Group, and they sort of reinvigorated everything, and I think they're doing an absolutely cracking job, not just with Glen, Scotia, I have to admit, but with Loch Lomond whiskies as well. So big up to the group. So thank you for reviving this sleeping giant, and I'm very, very happy that the stuff that they're producing is absolutely gorgeous. So, which brings us to this Victoriana. Interesting. Well, what do we know about this whiskey? Well, it's a non-age statement whiskey, though people say it has whiskeys from 8 to 16 years old. I don't know if that's, because that's not official literature, so I'm not 100% sure. It's bottled at a cask strength of 54.2% ABV. It's got an initial maturation of first and refill bourbon barrels, after which the maturation got split into 30% PX and 70% heavily charred American oak. I believe that matured for another year till the spirits were then remarried for a period of, I think, 12 months and then put into the bottle. So this is what I've managed to research. If there's any flaws in my research, do let me know. I do know for a fact that this whiskey is non-chill filtered and is natural color, only because it says so on the label at the back. So that's the only one thing I'm 100% sure about, including the strength. So there you have it. There you have it. Let's pour ourselves a glass. Here you go. That's what it looks like. Fairly nice deep gold color. I like the color. In this gorgeous malt activist glass. Can you see that? Can you see that? No, you can't. Well, too much reflections. Anyway. This is a nice nose. I have to admit, I don't remember this nose being that nice. I'm going to be honest. It is a very nice nose. And I don't see anything majorly wrong with it. I get a lemon citrus, green grass. It's quite floral. Hints of cinnamon and some ginger in there as well. Vanilla, milk chocolate, and oak. Some coffee beans in there as well, like a sweet coffee. Ooh, vanillas also. You know, I have to admit, I don't remember this being, the nose being this good. If I remember correctly, I did a review of 4 Glen, Scotia whiskeys, and this one was number 3 out of 4. Today, it smells very nice, very grassy, very green, very sort of almost fresh, like a fresh sprightly spirit, without the acetone, you know. Look, perfectly reasonable nose, absolutely nothing wrong with it. I really like it. Like I said, I wasn't that much of a fan last time I had it, and even now it's a very decent whiskey, but I wouldn't be like, oh my god, I've lost my mind, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. So interesting, but again, you know, a fairly decent nose, and all of the good stuff. Okay. All right, so I guess there's nothing left for me to do but dance. Cheers. Wow, that sweet lemon is back, as are the spices. Ooh, lots of spices. But now the citrus is more of an orange for me. I get clove. It's quite floral as well. I get like autumn leaves or forest. and a limestone minerality right at the end. Okay. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad. Would I have guessed that this was going to be my Scotch whiskey of the year? No, definitely not. And so I'm surprised. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure I could be just, someone who has a completely different palate, and I could be a complete exception to the rule, and obviously not know what I'm talking about, which is fine, and I'm very happy to accept that. But I've tasted better, more complex, more well-constructed whiskeys that were on the list at the OSWAs. So interesting to me that this is the one that came out as a winner, and it kind of makes me think behind the motivation for choosing a particular whiskey. Let's try this. I'm going to try this with just a dab, an absolute. That's my water dropping concentrated face. Come on, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so with a bit of water and flair. Yeah, a little more waxier now. Maybe a tad nicer with water. Quite decent, but doesn't do a 180 and become absolutely amazingly fantastic. So strange one for me here. I'm gonna be on. I'm not shitting on the results. I'm just very curious as to why this whiskey became the best single malt Scotch whiskey of the year. When there's so many other very interesting contenders in there. So could it be that Campbeltown right now, because of the lack of Springbank available, people are running towards Campbeltown whiskeys, and there's a bit of a allure of the region, and hence that was a motivation for choosing a Campbeltown whiskey, or I don't know. Did people really drink this whiskey and then nominate it, or did someone be like, oh man, of course, Glen, Scotia is doing some really good work, and I'm sure the Victoriana is very nice. Look, I don't know. I don't know about that, but I'm just very, very curious as to how this whiskey was the Scotch whiskey of the year 2022. And again, I'm not shitting on the OSWAs at all. Far from it. I'm like so happy to be a part of it and proud of all the work that they've done. But then again, because this is a public poll, this is what the people voted for. Sometimes you're like, hey man, what's the motivation? What is that motivation? And sometimes when you don't understand, you're like, why? So yeah, a weird one for me, man. I mean, it's not a bad whiskey by any means, but it's not a great whiskey by any means either. So the only thing I can just maybe chalk it down to is that I have a very different palate compared to the thousands of other people that voted for this whiskey, which is absolutely fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or on the other hand, people are just like, I don't know, drawn into the fact that this is a Campbeltown whiskey and are like, hey, this is a good whiskey. Or maybe there's like a certain section of people who think, all Campbeltown whiskeys are good, so hence this one needs to be the winner. I don't know, man. I don't know, because I think there were other whiskeys on that list that were much better whiskeys, and I was very, very surprised when this one came out on top. So I thought I'll go check it out again, and when I did, I was like, yeah, something weird something weird here that I can't put my finger on. And, you know, and the best part is that the entire voting process is extremely transparent, is extremely independent, you know, done with complete integrity and honesty and transparency. And so when it's all of that, you know, because there's no political motivation to get this whiskey to win, there's no bribery or corruption, and so you think, oh, how did this happen? You know, and while it's a decent dram, while it's a good dram, does it deserve the top place in a people's poll for the best Scotch whiskey of the year? So my answer to that is no, I don't think so. And so, you know, it makes me wonder what is it that people like, you know? What is it that when they drink it that they like it? And it's so far removed from your you know, taste preference that you're like, whoa, really? Am I the exception? You know, which is probably the case, you know. Yeah, I'm just rambling now because I don't know what happened. In all honesty, I do know for a fact that the OSWAs are probably the most transparent, honest, you know, whiskey competition or contest in the world right now, right? Because it's done by the people for the people, and then people, and you know, I guess it's the same thing when people say, "Oh man, we love Macallan." There's so many people that say we love Macallan, and I think to myself, why? Really? Do you really? Honestly, you know, or are you just following the masses? You know, is that what it is? So it could be a case of that, or it could be that, you know, my taste buds are very different from so many people around the world, and that I am the exception, and which is fine, and I'm happy to accept that. I think I've said that enough. So, and again, I'm going to say this one more time, and I'm going to reiterate the fact that I am not shitting on the OSWAs. I think they're literally the most wholesome, transparent, honest, you know, well-intentioned whiskey competition in the world, started by two people, Roy and Ralphie, who the industry respects, and the people that they chose are also in that same position of respect and dignity and honor, and you know, who narrowed it down to these 8 or 9 different whiskeys that were in the shortlist, and then the world, whiskey drinking world, responded with their preference and their votes, and this whiskey won, and it won fair and square, and which is why it's surprising to me, like it really won fair and square. You know, there's no trickery involved, there's no corruption, there's no dishonesty, there's no bribery. It's not FIFA, right? Which is why it got me thinking. Like if I even suspected that there was some, you know, tomfoolery going on, there was a bit of corruption, I would not be making this video, because then I'd be like pointing fingers. But because it's so 100% transparent, and that the whole process is so unbiased, that something that I thought was fairly average ended up winning top spot, makes me question my palate, or conversely, the collective palates of thousands of people. So interesting, and you know, I guess that's why we love this spirit, because you know, one man's poison is another's elixir, or whatever you want to call it. So I still think the whiskey is average, but thousands of other people don't. I'm happy to live by that. When it won, I was surprised. I thought, hey man, let's revisit it and see what the fuss is about. And as it turns out, you know, I kind of have the same opinion. My mind really hasn't changed that much, except now that I am doubting my palate against thousands and thousands of people, and which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. So, Yeah, as you can probably tell from my face, I'm a little confused. So yeah, that's it. I don't want to say anything more, and it is what it is. And thank you. I'll see you next time.